All right, this set of numbers is not exactly what the Astorino camp wants to hear. A recent Siena College poll showed that nearly 2/3 of New York voters have no idea who Rob Astorino is or have no opinion of him. Now, the Westchester County exec who is out for Governor Cuomo's job, lagging way behind Cuomo in the polls. And our guest tonight, Phil Reisman, has given some of his top 10 suggestions in a top 10 list form for how Astorino can actually become an overnight celebrity. I picked a couple here, and Phil can throw it in his own here. But number 3 on the list was run onto the field at Yankee Stadium. They could have used some help today after getting beat down by the Orioles, carrying a sign, Astorino for governor, and then get arrested by security. Number 2, collect a truckload of Donald Trump's marketing crap and burn it in a giant bonfire on Carl Palladino's front lawn. And number 1, forget all of the above and just get yourself booked as a guest on Letterman's show. You know, we make jokes, and I said he's one of the most underestimated politicians I've seen. I mean, I've underestimated him, but I saw him take down Andy Spano when Andy was vulnerable and maybe a little too ripe on the vine. And I've seen him in a democratically controlled county win by double digits over a well-financed opponent. But the issue is, can he ever make a statewide campaign with either funds and with a party apparatus that's in disarray? Is he electable in New York?
Well, that's what we're going to find out. You know, it's funny. After that, I ran that, did that column, which was, by the way, it was a Desperation Friday late kind of thing. Just so you know, I don't usually do top 10s or top 14s. I got some really awful hate mail. I mean, people calling me an Astorino hater and all that kind of stuff.
Now you know you wrote a good column.
Yeah, well, which I'm not. And, and I'm like reading this one email, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I get a call from Astorino, right? And he usually doesn't call. And he was actually pretty good about it.
He's got thick skin.
He's got very thick skin, which is part of his charm, I think, to your point about never underestimate the guy. And he was like saying some stuff, and he was saying, don't, basically in so many words, don't count me out. And he thinks that there is some parallels between this race and the 2009 race against Andy Spano. I'm a little incredulous about that, but,
I figured he would have said to you, there's a little bit of Pataki versus Cuomo Sr., where an unknown from Westchester could ride a wave of antipathy. Now, the antipathy is not there, but the thing I never can figure it out is, Phil, how does a guy who's a pro-life, anti-gay marriage, Republican win in New York State? I know you can say anybody but the incumbent if it goes south for the governor, but how do you get past the social hurdles?
Well, this is the thing. And of course, I'm not a paid consultant on how to run campaigns. If I was, I wouldn't be in the job I'm in. I'd be making real money, right? And but some of these guys whom I respect say, and they're Republicans, saying he's been pushed too far into those social issues by the Palladino pressure. And that what he needs to do is tack more to the center. He's got that 30% base vote. I mean, they're going to vote for him.
Where are they going to go?
Probably. You know. So we'll see. I mean, I've said this before, and I still think it's true. If he can run a credible race, he's got currency to run again.
Oh, I heard the number, Dominic, is 43. That's the rough number they said to me, 43. If he can get that, then it was worth it.
And Richard, I was just going to say that's the number he got when he ran against Spano the first time and lost. He got 43%.
I don't know if he's going to reach that mark. He's a Mr. Astorino, a very likable guy, as you know, when you sit down and talk to him. That's one way to get around the social issues. But Cuomo is going to make sure that voters never forget those social issues. Here's the problem. You already know Rule 101 of the playbook. If 65% of the voters in this state don't know who you are, what's the first thing the opponent's going to do? I'm going to define him before he gets the opportunity to define himself. Perfect example, Cuomo's coming here to Astorino's turf tomorrow morning, appearing before business leaders. So Cuomo only knows one way. That's a 100-mile-an-hour fastball coming directly at your face.
Some guys
That's the way he plays.
Not raise any, ruffle any further, maybe even keep some money in the bank. He wants to eviscerate his opponent here, and that's maybe part of his risk. He might go overboard, but if he knows where to draw the line, it could be a rough campaign. All right, next up. New York State Senate, there's a member of it that will never be boring, and that is one Greg Ball from Putnam County. And they got some heat for a lot of things, but most recently maybe for saying, quote, and I'm reading his quote directly here with some liberties, "I don't give an S," and he didn't say S, "about party politics." And he said that live on the radio, and he got some heat from his host for swearing right there on the air, and that is raising more than a few questions tonight about cursing in the media. You might have also seen a recent op-ed piece in the Times weighing in on the notion, a columnist supporting the idea of cursing if it helps set the tone of the story, or if it's literal. From your perspective here, let's first deal with Ball. I mean, you should be able to control yourself. You're a grown man here, right?
Right. Well, first of all, the way I look at it is he's trying to get attention.
It's
this is a guy who's always trying to get attention, and he'll do that. It's very calculated. And and we have a whole history of this with Greg Ball. You could write a book about some of the stuff he's been doing.
Don't forget the dead goat.
Going way back to the dead goat that was left on his driveway, we think, and blamed on some South American gang. At least he blamed it on. Never been proven.
Didn't you blame Brodsky too?
He probably did. As one anonymous cop said, if it was really that South American gang, Greg Ball wouldn't have been able to turn around before he was dead. So I mean, it was those guys are they don't play games. So I mean he's and this is all in advance, by the way, of him probably announcing he's going to run for county executive in Putnam County, we think, and we'll see what happens. He's sort of like you remember Animal House?
Yeah, of course.
You remember the character Niedermeyer?
Yeah.
He's Niedermeyer.
Oh, that's a great call.
He really is.
No idea what you're talking about, but I remember Niedermeyer.
Yeah.
Wear that pledge pin. Yeah.
Yeah, and the silver helmet.
Exactly.
So
now, how about, Dominic, it's a media story and you're reporting what Greg Ball says, or you're covering somebody and a politician, let's say like the former Toronto mayor, Mr. Ford, goes blue. Should you report it and repeat what the person said, or you just put in the asterisks and the pound signs and let the viewers reach their own conclusion?
Option B, let the viewers reach their own conclusion. I have never reported a story where I cursed on the air, quoting a politician that may have cursed beforehand. And there are times when it's very challenging. All of us know from covering the Bill Clinton impeachment story and the allegation, about the cigar and places where it went. And I'm sitting there live, and they're like, "We're coming to you in 30 seconds." And I'm like, how do I report about this cigar and where the cigar went, Yeah. And so there are questionable times when you have to be real careful, but I wouldn't repeat.
We're starting to see the trending. It's starting to go where it's becoming more acceptable, not to go blue, but you're seeing it more and more often.
But it's all for effect, and it's dangerous. And that's why Senator Ball does that. It's for effect and for what we're doing now, talking about him.
You see it in primetime television shows.
Yes, you do.
So it's a short.
Not even prime time. The stuff that you can hear, and it's those like what's the American Dad or the Family Man?
Yes.
My God, the stuff they get away with on that show. It's clever, but all right. Next one, and this from our neck of the woods, but it's a statewide issue that I'm surprised hasn't gotten more attention in this calendar year. The Governor Cuomo, has long had an eye, at least, on shutting down Indian Point. He talked about it when he was Attorney General. He's talked about it since he's been governor. However, environmentalists say, well, the governor doesn't technically have the authority to close the plant. No one in New York does. Doing so would actually pose a health hazard to the area unless it is replaced with a renewable energy source here. Okay, we've heard all the talk, but people don't know this. King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, was where they make this decision at the NRC.
Right.
But it kind of, I don't know, it disappeared into the ether, this debate. We thought this was going to be such a big deal, and then maybe it was Entergy's advertising or whatever else, but you don't hear about it so much, especially since Fukushima's, I guess, faded back into the memories.
Well, Indian Point power plant survived a lot of governors, and it'll probably survive this one. I mean, you're right. It survived 3 Mile Island. It survived Chernobyl, Fukushima, the whole 9 yards. The thing is, it's true. The state doesn't have control over a nuclear power plant, and the only best bet that probably would be to come up with some kind of preemptive thing involving the State Clear Water Act. you know, because of the water.
And that's what comes down to, the water, right? That's the only
really
way if you cut
the
off the water.
And I doubt a federal judge will go along with it. I just do, you know.
It's a battle the governor can't win. That's why he's not taking
He can't
it
win
on.
he can't lose talking about it, but push comes to shove. They've talked about evacuation plans, they've talked about the malfunctioning siren, they've talked about the security, they've talked about all these different things, but at the end of the day, water was the only credible thing.
Right.
And I think, from what I hear behind the scenes, that this governor made sure this Attorney General, Mr. Schneiderman, didn't make as big a stink as maybe Eric wanted to, but that's
the other thing real quick, Rich, is there's no replacement for this.
No.
This plant churns out so much energy, and the stuff that you're going to replace it with is going to get the environmentalists upset because it's going to contribute to the polar bears floating down from the North
In many
Pole.
ways, if people don't want to hear this, this gets more complicated every year we go up.
Right.
Okay. We will jump to a quick commercial break, but when we come back, a fascinating conversation. We talked about at the top of the hour 50 years ago, this moment in American history and civil rights. Well, also a story that happened in New York that in many ways defined urban crime. A look at the gruesome story of one Kitty Genovese. She, as many remember, murdered near her home in Queens 50 years ago, and stories of her death have been shared in the news, documentaries, even in the classroom. Well, our next guest, author Kevin Cook, says many of the stories that you've heard aren't true. He's going to tell us why this book still resonates today.